Thanks, David. And may I say, what a great pleasure it is to be back in Scotland. And there are great things happening in Scotland, and it's a fantastic meeting, so all credit to Anna. I had the privilege of being chief scientist from 2012 to 2017, and can I thank both Anna and David for clearing up the mess I left behind. However, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to omics and genomics. In 2006, it was Roland Jung who sponsored an initiative called Generation Scotland, which was a complementary initiative to UK Biobank. And I had the privilege of working with Anna, David Porteous, who should get a big mention, and Blair Smith in Aberdeen and Dundee in setting this show on the road. And I'm delighted today to welcome Heather Whalley, who's the Chief Scientist of Generation Scotland and also a Professor of Neuroscience and Mental Health at the University of Edinburgh. So please join me in giving Heather a great welcome.
Well, thank you very much for that very pleasant introduction. That was very kind of you. And it's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to speak to you all today about Generation Scotland. Some of it you will already know. So I'm really going to give a brief summary of the original cohort, and then I'm going to move on to talk about plans for Next Generation Scotland. So Generation Scotland, for those of you that don't know, is a large family and population-based study established as a resource for research into the genetic and environmental determinants of physical and mental health. It was established in 2006 and funded by the CSO, and is a collaboration between the universities of Aberdeen, Dundee, Edinburgh, Glasgow, and NHS Scotland. And we're also overseen by a scientific steering committee chaired by Anna, with representatives from all of the universities that I just mentioned. So between 2006 and 2011, 24,000 individuals were recruited to the study. And this includes data from around 6,000 families. The participants completed health questionnaires and attended an in-person clinic visit for baseline assessments and for collection of samples. And some of the phenotypes are shown above. And I won't go into a great deal of detail because we've not got a lot of time, but basically the assessments included baseline assessments of family information, lifestyle data, cognitive testing, personality traits, and mental and physical health. And alongside the questionnaire-based data, we also took biological samples at the clinic visit, which included blood, saliva, and urine. And genetic data is now available on blood samples for around 20,000 individuals. Blood-based methylation data has been generated using the EPIC array on around 19,000 individuals, and is currently one of the largest studies in the world for methylation data. And protein levels have been quantified in over 1,000 plasma samples using the SomaScan array. And I'm told that mass spec data is coming very soon on the full 20,000 individuals. So a real opportunity for multi-omics research. At a later time point, multimodal brain imaging data was acquired in Aberdeen and Dundee, just over 1,000 individuals. And participants also gave broad consent for prospective and retrospective linkage to routine and administrative health records, and they've consented for future recontact. So this slide really just gives an overview of the linked data and the years of coverage that are available for Generation Scotland. So around 93% of participants consented to linkage and had a Chi number that was available. And I won't go through the details, but you can see from the slide that the coverage for the linked data includes many of the SMR data, prescriptions and other data sets, including COVID-related data, diabetes and primary care. And we get regular data refreshes, and new data is added as it becomes available for use by researchers. And some of these new additions relate to brain health, which is close to my heart. My background is in brain imaging, which I'll go into detail in a bit more on the following slides. And I'd also like to state and make the important point that this linkage and all other areas of Generation Scotland are conducted through consultation with our volunteers. And we very much see Generation Scotland as a strong partnership between our volunteers and researchers. So just an example of some of the new phenotypes that we're working on. These phenotypes happen to be around brain health. I just provide these as an example. And we've been working with several groups across Scotland to access neuroradiology data for the Generation Scotland participants. So this includes both the text-based neuroradiology reports and the actual images themselves. And combining these tools with, combine these data with AI tools, for example, natural language processing of free text data within the neuroradiology reports, we've been able to derive new, more detailed brain health phenotypes that can supplement the coded data that's available through the linked resources. And I also mention these brain health phenotypes not just because they're interesting in themselves, but as an example of using Generation Scotland to demonstrate the utility of approaches that we can then use at scale. So then we can take them to the population level and beyond. And indeed, using this approach, there's a study called Warbler, which is led by Whalley, that has now gone on the basis of the foundational work in Generation Scotland to access millions of brain imaging reports across the whole of the nation. Other phenotypes that we're in the process of generating in Generation Scotland, which could follow similar approaches, are deriving antidepressant treatment response variables using NLP tools from health records, testing the feasibility of neonatal Guthrie blood spot tests for genetics and methylation analysis, and testing access to retinal scans for research. These could just be the start of any number of opportunities. So just to change direction a bit, I'd just like to talk about our current phase of Generation Scotland that we refer to as Next Generation Scotland. So we were awarded new funding from the Wellcome Trust to recruit a further 20,000 new participants into the study. And this includes anybody living in Scotland over the age of 12. We have a focus on passive and remote data collection, trying to move with the times. So there's no need to attend a clinic visit for this round of data collection, which allows us a broader reach in terms of harder to reach communities. So sampling is through a postal saliva kit for DNA and DNA methylation, and the questionnaire is accessed through the portal shown on the slide. And you may well ask why particularly 12 and above? Well, as well as the ability to look at the earlier onset of disease, it also captures the peak onset for mental health conditions, which is another area close to my heart, illustrated in the graph, which was taken from a report from the World Health Organization and published in Lancet Psychiatry last month. So it's a period that's often sadly missed from many large population-based studies, which is such a critical importance for looking at longitudinal mental health trajectories. So recruiting this size of cohort over what has been for us quite a short space of time has been no mean feat. And that's meant we've had to focus on some scalable recruitment strategies, and we've had to be pretty nimble and agile. And one of these strategies includes a national TV advert, which I just put up for a little bit of fun here. So this is a still shot from the TV advert, which features our volunteers talking really quite passionately about how they were involved in research. And the advert aired throughout June this year. And on the right, I've put up an example of a single day in June and the registrations that we had from the TV advert being shown. And you can see on the x-axis which TV programmes were on this morning, Loose Women. But you can see clearly that there was a big boost in recruitment for adverts that aired around the time of Coronation Street. So what we affectionately refer to as the Corrie effect. I also mentioned previously about this new cohort focusing on remote and passive data collection methods. And I just want to highlight two data collections that we have planned for the younger members of the cohort, with funding from the MRC Adolescent Health Study Methodology Call. So one is using ecological momentary assessment tools, which are co-produced by the young people themselves, to look at loneliness in the digital world, so comparing online and offline social interactions and mood. And the other study is called Ambient Teens, and this is establishing feasibility of passive radar-based sleep monitoring in young people, again with a strong co-production and citizen science element. And Sarah, our young person engagement officer, is talking about some of these young person engagement activities later. So before I finish, I'd just like to round off the talk by saying that if you're interested in any of the data I've covered or any of the data I've not covered or anything that we've not yet even thought of, please do get in touch. Or as an unashamed plug, that you could even think about signing up. So anybody in Scotland over the age of 12 can join up quite broad parameters for recruitment. And either way, we're a really friendly team and we would love to hear from you. So I'd like to say thank you to the Generation Scotland team, shown on the left, and many here today with posters and other talks. To the participants and the volunteers shown on the right with their brain scans that were conducted. To the contributors from the other universities and teams, and finally to the funders, and thanks to yourselves for listening.
There must be some questions. Well, I'm looking for people to be bold. But I'll kick off, because if you look at the UK landscape, Heather, we're very strong in population cohorts. For example, UK Biobank with 500,000. Our Future Health, I understand, is aiming for 5 million people and is approaching 1 million recruits. What distinctive scientific value do you think family-based studies offer beyond population cohorts?
Well, that's a really interesting question and a very important point for all these big studies that are coming through. And obviously the ability of having family structure within the data allows you to look at heritability of particular traits, and that's really the foundation of Generation Scotland, and the importance of bringing in these younger generations into the study. Yeah.
So an early career researcher, Ian McInnes.
I'd like even more, Andrew. I'll shout. I hope people can hear me. Generation Scotland is just amazing. Can I ask about your thoughts on revisiting those who contribute, to think particularly about the epigenetic changes that might occur over time? And now that you have people aged 12 on, that's super exciting. So any thoughts about whether there's recall and whether we could learn about change, environmental impact at the genetic level over time?
Absolutely, yeah, that's one of the things that we are very keen to do, and another advantage of the study of having such an excellent longitudinal cohort and longitudinal epigenetic data, of which there are some within Generation Scotland already, but it would be great to do a follow-up wave of accessing that data. At the moment, we are kind of full all steam ahead on recruiting our new 20,000 volunteers, but it's definitely something that would be in the pipeline further down the line. Thank you.
Okay, any final questions? Okay, join me again. There's one. Fantastic. And perhaps if you could say who you are, so that everyone knows, that would be great.
Thank you. My name is Heng Leong, based in Glasgow. Out of interest, do you have information about what proportion of the Generation Scotland cohort are from deprived socioeconomic background?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And with any cohort studies, you're right, there is a bias towards the least deprived areas. We were hoping with a TV advertisement to kind of be able to balance that out, and that does seem to be the case. In fact, I wish I'd put a slide up to show how the TV adverts kind of almost balanced out across all the SIMD levels. So we're in the process of digging down a little bit deeper into that to see how many people actually then follow through and do all the questionnaires. But it would be nice to think that there's new recruitment ways that we can think of to include these individuals in research.
Okay, and there's a question here.
Is there any plans at all to combine some of the work that Generation Scotland then shared with executive work with PowerPoint?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, we're trying to recruit anybody, so the recruitment is quite broad. So within the next newsletter to share participants, I believe that we're putting information about how to join Generation Scotland within that.